Something about 90s movies that has studios wanting to remake them decades later in series format. And somehow they all miss the mark as if it's a rite of passage. Such is the case for today's topic, Cruel Intentions, a provocative, borderline disturbing movie that was remade into a snooze fest that loses all the appeal of its predecessor, because I guess people were scared of saying anything or offending anyone. Like many other movies ahead of its time, Cruel Intentions received a mixed to negative reception, and later gained cult status, because sometimes good things need time to age, like wine or cheese or Christopher Maloney. And of course, any piece of media that contains a vicious, nasty, malicious, mean girl is gonna resonate with the gays and the girls. And that's going to become pop culture. Look it up, that is the cycle. So 25 years after the release of Cruel Intentions, following several failed attempts at sequels, Amazon, everybody's favorite corporate capitalistic warlord, released Cruel Intentions, the series. They took a piece of provocative, if slightly disturbing and controversial piece of media with sharp writing and vicious characters and turned it into a boring kumbaya mess. Listen, the movie's not a great movie. It has a glaring issue that, if changed, I feel would genuinely make this better, and that is the age of the characters. For those of you who don't know, Cruel Intentions is yet another adaptation of the French novel Les Liaisons Dangereuses from the 1700s, a book that depicted the corruption and depravity of the French nobility. It was social commentary, if you will. And the book has actually been adapted into an Academy Award-winning movie starring Glenn Close. But in 1999, due to what I can only imagine was an obsession with having kids on screen, they decided to make an adaptation of the story with a modern twist. Instead of rich aristocrats, we get rich high school students, also known as teenagers, indulging in the same depraved, manipulative sexual behavior. I guess it had more mainstream appeal if the characters were young and relatable to a young audience, though I don't know what 16-year-olds are doing all that. But okay. But Cruel Intentions is a very apropos title. Apropos, look at me being all French and shit. In the book, they are ex-lovers, but they are of age. So I guess to up the ante of these are depraved rich people, they made them siblings. And then chickened out, probably realizing that blood siblings would have been a little bit too far in actual incest, and they made them step-siblings instead. That's just a theory that I have. And though the characters are all in their teens, they cast a bunch of 20-year-olds, which is good. You know, there's a reason why grown-ups play high school students, because writers love to write teenagers as if they were adults. But because they look like adults, it's very easy to dismiss the concerns around the character's actual age, because at the moment, they all look like 20-year-olds, which allows us to enjoy the movie a little bit more, which is good because the writing is quite funny and sharp at times. And then the remake, Cruel Intentions 2024, saw what worked, threw that in the trash, and made more. More characters, more storylines, more backstory, more of everything except substance. The remake follows Caroline and Lucian, the new generation's Catherine and Sebastian, and the basis of their relationship is the same, except this time they're in college. Setting the story in an American Ivy League college also gives them ample opportunity to criticize this high society of elite students who come from affluent families with a lot of political and powerful influence in the world. And the series does some commentary on those social circles, sort of, but it's very boring. The writing isn't sharp as much as it is a washed out version of kinda mean. Some plot lines are shoehorned into the story to pay homage to the original, but they forget to make them flow into the story. But most of all, the cruel intentions that were just that, cruel, no longer exist. Sure, they're still evil, but here it's all done in the name of protecting the status, the institution, the system. It pulls in political elements to the story. I mean, one of the main characters is the literal daughter of the Vice President of the United States, and half the students are related to congresspeople or lobbyists, yet politics play almost no role in the story. The politics feel hollow, the threats feel like genuine consequence-free games, because much of the story is pared down so much, it's no longer provocative or sharp, it's just there. It's a politically correct show about politically incorrect people, and that makes for a very jarring viewing experience. If anything, it's a disappointment because the original wasn't even that great to begin with. And we'll get into the original story and its many problems, but for as many flaws as it also had a point of view, it had an intention, and if it wasn't saying anything socially relevant, at least it was giving us Christine Baranski telling her daughter,
"Keep your legs together. This isn't Jamaica."
a 15-year-old daughter played by a 27-year-old actress. It's camp. Or the classic, Ronald, email is for geeks and pedophiles. Be romantic. Write her a letter. And that first sentence has never felt so True. I mean, if the show's not good, it's at least fun, and if it's not fun, it's at least accurate. In the series, we get stuff like crowds looking a little thin, wouldn't you say? And not in a good way. And that's just flat. Or even if it isn't the Three Musketeers. It's just so plain and vanilla and basic, like unseasoned rice and chicken. Like when I talk about something being camp and nasty versus flat and mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I should say the later episodes of the series are a significant improvement over a sluggish first half, but by that point, they've already bored us. And then they write a shit ass season finale in the hopes of snatching another season. And that didn't happen, so we're left with this. And I'm gonna break it all down so you don't have to watch yet another series. So if that sounds like a good time to you, now would be the perfect time for you to subscribe down below and help support the channel. Looking great as always. Cruel Intentions 1999, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillip, and Reese Witherspoon. These were the titans of the 90s. And the movie establishes Sebastian as a grade A piece of shit from the jump. In order to get back at his therapist, who isn't a fan of him, Sebastian seduces her daughter, films the encounter, and posts it online, which today would be a crime. But in the movie, he just walks off with yet another new girl as the mom is screaming at the top of her lungs that he's not gonna get away with this. Sebastian is a bad person. At home, Catherine is hosting Bunny Caldwell and her young daughter, Cecile, who is presumably 15. And I say 15 because the actress playing her is actually the oldest of the young cast, Selma Blair, who was 27 at the time. And Catherine is going to help Cecile's integration into Manchester Prep, a prestigious co-educational private school. Or so Catherine says. As it turns out, Catherine is only doing this as a way to get close to Cecile, to then destroy her, because Catherine's ex-boyfriend dumped her after he fell for Cecile. And that was after he fell asleep while she was going down on him. So she gives Sebastian a mission: seduce Cecile and help Catherine turn her into a grade A tramp of the city. Cecile, the 15-year-old girl. And if you're thinking, like Sebastian was, wait, why don't you go after the guy that dumped you instead of going after Cecile? You must be new here. Catherine says if she goes after him, it could be traced back to her, and she wouldn't want that. So instead, she's just gonna go for the next best thing, Cecile. Because Catherine is also a bad person. They are vicious and cruel for no purpose other than entertaining themselves and each other. Sebastian refuses the challenge, calling it way too easy, and instead selects something a little bit more challenging. Annette Hargrove, the virginal daughter of Manchester Academy's new headmaster. She's written an op-ed, Why I Plan to Wait, where she lays out how she wants to wait until she's married before having sex, and how her boyfriend of 1 year understands it completely.
Trevor understands.
Trevor's a fat.
Listen, with no authority on my side whatsoever, I'm going to say that Sarah Michelle Gellar is allowed to say the word consequence-free. Catherine thinks Annette is too big of a challenge even for Sebastian, so they make a bet. If Sebastian can sleep with her before school starts, Catherine will give him what he's been obsessing over ever since their parents got married. Catherine herself, the only woman that Sebastian can't have, because they're step siblings, and that would be fucking disgusting. Doesn't stop them from wanting it though.
No way.
You can put it anywhere.
And if Sebastian loses, Catherine gets his car, a gorgeous little number both of them are obsessed about. Ready, set, match. Sebastian makes a move on Annette, who is staying with his aunt while her parents are somewhere. I don't know, rich people staying with rich people doing rich people shit. So he meets her and immediately criticizes her op-ed, her values and views, you know, treat him mean to keep him keen or whatever. But Annette has been informed via a letter from one of her friends of Sebastian's promiscuous behavior, how he promises girls the world and then uses them and dumps them unceremoniously. So Sebastian consults with Blaine to find out who has been writing to Annette. He goes to Blaine because Blaine is gay, and we all know that gay people have a genetic predisposition for knowing where gossip originates. Scientifically speaking and biologically talking, it's the truth. Blaine theorizes it was Greg McConnell, a closeted jock he sleeps with on a regular basis who just so happens to be besties with Annette. So Sebastian arranges to catch them in the act so he can confront Greg and blackmail him. Except turns out it wasn't Greg who badmouthed him to Annette. So he blackmails Greg into finding out who spoke to Annette, but also putting in a good word for him. As it turns out, the person who badmouthed him was Mrs. Caldwell herself, Cecile's mother. So naturally, from now onwards, whenever Catherine needs his help destroying Cecile, he's gonna do it. because he hates her mom. Meanwhile, Catherine discovers that Cecile is falling in love with her music teacher. One thing about Cecile, she's very immature, and she's infantilized to explain to the audience, look, this girl is very inexperienced with boys. She's never kissed anyone, she's never liked anyone, she's been sheltered by her mom. But the undertones of this performance raise a lot of questions, because this is a 27-year-old actress playing a 15-year-old teenager who acts like a prepubescent, uncoordinated toddler.
Dr. King is my favorite.
Who acts like a baby.
Cecile!
Talks like a baby.
Because I told her for a long time, for like 2 weeks, that I could do this. And then
It had me thinking, is this behavior appealing to older men? Not to make it about that, but after all of the files that we've seen come out in the last few weeks, I wouldn't put it past them to have influenced culture enough to normalize these things. Now, one of the most iconic moments of this movie has to be the lesbian kiss between Catherine and Cecile. A kiss that was so beautifully recreated in not another teen movie. And I will say, the first time that I watched this movie, as a little kid, this scene had me shocked. Like, this was before I knew about the gay. I was just confused. Why are two women massaging each other's tongues? My brain capacity did not have the capacity to understand this.
Now, have you ever eaten pussy before?
Seeing as the music teacher is advancing things very rapidly with Cecile, Catherine decides to tattletale to Cecile's mom, so Cecile's mom can break up their relationship, so Cecile has no choice but to turn to Catherine for help. So she tells her mom, and her response is exactly what you'd expect from a rich white woman.
She's so young and he's so
Black?
She wastes no time firing him.
I got you off the streets, and this is how you repay me?
I live at 59th and Park.
And you know what? I don't even know how old he is, but I think he is an adult. He is of age, and Cecile is 15. So, you know, probably a good thing that she fired him. But don't let them mention that, because the mom is only angry at the situation because he's black. Because the mom's a racist.
Whatever.
Catherine then asks Sebastian to help her speed Cecile's sexual awakening process. So under the guise of helping Cecile connect with her music teacher, his name is Ronald, by the way, I keep forgetting to say, Sebastian coerces her into sex. Yep. He manipulates her and threatens to tell her mom if she doesn't let him do things to her. And when confiding in Catherine, Cecile is told to keep doing it and to see Sebastian as a tutor to help her get better at sex. Cecile's like, wouldn't that make me a slut? And Catherine says, everybody does it, it's just no one talks about it. To which Cecile responds, so it's like a secret society? She's really dumb, but like, that's the point. I think that was on purpose so as to remove ourselves from what is being done to Cecile. Like, because she's so stupid and aloof and she doesn't realize what's happening to her, it almost signals the audience to put their guard down and be like, oh, okay, no problem. She doesn't even know that she's being coerced into having sex with someone she doesn't want to. And it almost hides Sebastian and Catherine's cruelty, but, you know, needless to say, they are both pieces of shit. And while all this is happening, Sebastian gets closer and closer to Annette over several conversations they have. And then one day, after volunteering together in a care home, Annette does this on the drive home to lighten him up. Cause she's so quirky, such a silly girl. She's not like the other girls. She's not afraid to look dumb. Oh, Annette was so boring. At this point, Sebastian is falling in love with Annette, so when given the chance to actually sleep with her and win the bet, he backs away. Annette leaves the next day, so he chases after her, and we get another staple of the 90s. Reese riding the escalators, Ryan Phillip waiting for her at the top as Colorblind by Counting Crows plays, all culminating in a passionate kiss that leads to passionate lovemaking. God, people were obsessed with having teenage characters on screen. Euphoria before Euphoria. And Catherine's been busy too, in the sense that she's begun sleeping with Ronald. And she does that, I guess, so that Sebastian can catch her sleeping with him and get jealous. Unfortunately, that has changed now that Sebastian is in love with Annette. He is no longer under Catherine's control. And losing control of the narrative goes against Catherine's nature. So she threatens to call Annette's father and reveal to him how his perfect little daughter has lost her virginity to the Academy's biggest man whore. That won't fly with Sebastian, Sebastian, who decides to tell her himself. And at this point, Catherine is very skeptical of this 180 change in behavior that Sebastian has demonstrated in the last few days, and I agree. This sudden moral clarity does not excuse all the shit that he's done. Remorseful over his actions, Sebastian decides instead to break up with Annette, calling her just a conquest and that she means nothing, and though she doesn't believe his words, she sees him crying and shaking, she does send him away. Angry. And as revenge on Catherine for forcing him to do that, Sebastian arranges for Ronald and Cecile to get together so that Catherine can get rejected once again for another innocent little twit. But Catherine's plan was ultimately more vicious. She convinced Sebastian to break up with the only girl he's ever loved because he is nothing but a little toy for Catherine to play with. And then she rejects him because she doesn't fuck losers. So in a last bit to fix things, Sebastian leaves his personal journal with Annette for full transparency. A journal where he's documented all of his and Catherine's twisted games and how things changed once Annette entered his life. She spends the night reading it while he spends the night outside waiting for some sign of reconciliation. And that's when Catherine calls Ronald to tell him that Sebastian just hit her and left her by herself. And he's been sleeping with Cecile. So Ronald goes after Sebastian and confronts him in the street. Annette, meanwhile, comes outside to meet Sebastian and finds them fighting. And in the altercation, Annette is pushed onto oncoming traffic, so Sebastian jumps in to save her, getting run over by a car in the process. Annette holds him, they profess their love for each other, and then he dies. And honestly, he kind of deserved it. He was a horrible human being, let's not forget. But what a strange death it was. You know, he did not seem that banged up at all. But okay. So at his funeral, Annette distributes photocopies of his journal, exposing Catherine and all her evil doings, including the little cross she wears around her neck, which doubles as a cocaine compartment for whenever she needs a little pick-me-up. I was obsessed with this cross when I was a kid. As a 12-year-old, I tried to get one, and I convinced myself that I was going to fill it up with cocaine. So see, movies do have bad influence on kids. Because now I just snort coke. And as Catherine stands disgraced in front of the entire student body, Annette drives off in Sebastian's car, smiling as Bittersweet Symphony plays in the background. That ending, hang it in the Louvre. That is a staple of the 90s. That might be the best ending of any movie ever. Part of history, pop culture excellence, this is the 90s, baby. Not a big fan of how we frame Catherine as the main evildoer and how Sebastian kind of gets away with everything by dying. But great ending nonetheless, iconic movie, and if you can look past the glaring issues and just the bad taste that the implications and the intentions behind it leave in your mouth, then you can actually find some real enjoyment. Just pretend they're all in their early 20s and that Cecile is just really, really slow. Yeah. But they weren't afraid to make these two characters, Sebastian and Catherine, absolute villains, like evil, for evil's sake. There were a couple of follow-ups, including a prequel and a sequel, both with different casts, and an attempt at a sequel series with Sarah Michelle Gellar's involvement that was never picked up in the mid-2010s, and even a jukebox musical from 2015. And in 2024, Prime Video released Cruel Intentions, the series, and let me tell ya, this was so boring. For this iteration, the story is set in a Washington, D.C. university, Manchester College, and follows step-siblings Caroline and Lucian as they do anything to maintain their status. The good thing is they aged up the characters, so the seduction games and reckless behavior isn't as much of a turnoff and actually becomes more realistic, believable, but they failed to make it interesting, or fun, or enticing, enthralling, entertaining. I found myself struggling to get through the series. Caroline is the president of Delta Phi, a prestigious sorority that gives off KKK vibes, and Lucian is part of the Alpha Gamma Zeta fraternity. Caroline is less cruel than Catherine in the sense that her cruelty usually has ulterior motives to advance her status or at least maintain it, whereas Catherine just did it out of boredom. And Lucian is everybody's favorite twink. Everyone, and I mean everyone, wants to fuck him. Even his stepmother, Caroline's mom. Yeah. It's actually sick that she talks to him as if he's her son that she's never had, but you know that she just wants to get into his pants. That, I will say, gagged me a little. Not enough to excuse the rest of the series, but that gagged me a little. Also, Lucian can only have sex if he records the encounters, which he then uploads to a shared folder Caroline has access to, which she uses to masturbate to. Yep, because they're messed up. And following a hazing incident that put their sorority and fraternity on probation, Caroline tasks Lucian with getting Annie Grover, the daughter of the Vice President of the United States, to rush Delta Phi. Having her in the sorority gives them security to never be kicked out of college or have their status revoked. In the original, the plan is cruel for entertainment purposes. They don't actually need a reason to want to destroy someone or play with people's lives like that. Here, it's much more calculated with a specific goal of holding on to power. It removes the cruel from the title and replaces it with political or selfish. And the bet is still the same. If he succeeds, Caroline will sleep with him, and if he loses, she'll get his car. And I don't know, it's so many changes they made to the original, which was already a massive change from the source material. I expected them to at least be a little bit more creative with how they framed it, seeing as everything has changed, but no. The bet is still pretty much the same. Cece, who in the movie and the novel is the target of Caroline's wrath, here is just her assistant, her right hand, if you will. Instead of infantilized, she is absolutely neurotic, like she's always on speed or acid, always at 100, and honestly, a scene stealer of the show.
Just be yourself.
Historically, that hasn't worked out for me.
Like, she's funny. She carries the show on her shoulders. There's also Blaze, who was Blaine in the original, who gets a much more prominent role in the show. He is part of the Alpha Gamma Zeta frat and has been embezzling his rich friends because he is secretly very poor. He's also best friends with Scott, who is a stand-in for Greg, who he also sleeps with on occasion. And in the original, Greg was closeted, terrified of being outed, but in the series, he is genuinely too dumb to realize he's gay. Like, I'm not being hyperbolic. He is really that stupid. And honestly, what a great character. Another scene stealer. And lastly, there's Professor Chadwick, who's a stand-in for Ronald, who is played by the same actor. Didn't de-age him at all. He's just an older professor. In this version, Cece becomes his TA, and they sort of fall for each other, except they never actually consummate that relationship, apart from a quick kiss at a party. You can tell they were hoping for a season 2. And Annie Grover, who in the movie was Annette Hargrove, is the daughter of the Vice President of the United States. Everybody wants to be close to her because of her proximity to power. I mean, Vice President, you know? And at some point, a group of presumably leftist progressives discuss ways to bring down the Greek college system, which they see as oppressive. And this group is led by Beatrice Worth, who is this social justice warrior that gets done so dirty in the series. Because for all of her good intentions, Beatrice is another narcissist who uses progressive opinions as a way to make it about herself, a way to approximate herself to a power she wants to topple so she can get into power. And despite the setting, they never really discuss politics at all. Like, one of the kids tells Annie that he disagrees with her father's politics, but trusts her to be her own person and form her own views and opinions. And they never go any deeper than that. And it all just makes it feel very surface level, very low stakes, no research, no exploring anything of substance at all. In order to get Annie closer to Delta Phi, Lucian hijacks a protest Beatrice organizes, purposefully ensuring that by the end of it, Beatrice looks like a despondent lunatic with a personal vendetta against Delta Phi for having been rejected 3 times in the past, and Annie just falls into Caroline's arms. And there's a lot of focus on the sorority and the prestige that is being part of it. The selection process involves group discussions over every student's net worth and what connections they can bring to the sisterhood. And for as much wealth as there is on screen, the faction is truly a missed opportunity. Like, forgettable through and through. Not that the original film is anything to rave about, but still, Amazon has the budget. They can spend millions on Melania, but not some on a decent wardrobe and costume teams department or something. And the writing is also not that sharp. They try here and there, but it's like they wanted to be but they were afraid of doing too much or upsetting anyone, overstepping any lines or pushing anyone's boundaries. And maybe that's why they kept the politics to a minimum as well, which again feels strange considering half these kids are the sons and daughters of senators and millionaires. The whole show is based in fucking Washington, D.C. Hello! Their lives are inherently political, but at school, that never plays a role in the discourse. Like, everybody's apolitical in this school. Sure, Jan. I think they say Republican 1 time? That's it. All of these plans to get Annie to pledge for Delta Phi, we come to find out, are Caroline's plans to get her mom closer to the vice president, because her mom's a lobbyist. Her mom's a lobbyist who treats her daughter like disposable wet wipes and her stepson like the biggest prize of a porno. And I guess one of the sources of tension in the story between Caroline and Lucian is the fact that both Caroline and her mom want to Lucian. And Lucian, unlike in the original, is loved by everyone. He's charming, he's charismatic, and can sweet talk anyone into anything. At one point, he seduces Professor Chadwick's ex-wife, a sex-positive author, who says mid-coitus, "Ride me, daddy." I'm sorry. Why is a middle-aged woman calling this little twink a daddy? And the story progresses at a snail's pace, but it picks up steam around episode 5. That is also when they humanize Caroline a lot, and it becomes clear that everything that she does is to make her mom proud in some way. And even when she does everything she can, her mom is still unable to recognize any of her help. Caroline and Lucian also share a tender moment because in this one, they might actually be in love with each other. Like there's almost a fleeting moment where you could see them actually just fall into each other's arms and live life happy, live, laugh, love. But nope. Caroline rebuffs those feelings and resumes their bet. And another issue the series has is how they try to hit the same beats as the original, but in a way that feels more like fan service than actual narrative coherence. For example, the lesbian kiss is recreated in this series, except this time it's between Caroline and Annie during a confession session part of the sorority initiation process. So Caroline shares a personal story of how her mom paid her tennis coach to sleep with her since no one else would, something that happened to Cece but Caroline appropriated for herself, and Annie shares how insecure with boys she feels, afraid she's broken or she'll be bad. So Caroline kisses her in front of all these girls and finishes it by saying, "You were perfect." Just disjointed. Because the kiss was just put there as a callback to the original. But also, Caroline feels a lot more inconsistent. She spends most of the show, about 6 episodes, putting all these plans and moves in motion for her own personal gain. But then, when she realizes Cece is in love with Professor Chadwick and is not giving Delta Phi all of her undivided attention, she stages an accidental crash into his car so she can pretend to be a supervisor of sororities, seduce him, and sleep with him, so she can then make an anonymous complaint of sexual misconduct to the school. And I'm thinking, did she need to sleep with him for the complaint to be believable? Because she calls it in anonymously. In the original, she sleeps with him to gain control over his actions and to manipulate him for her own personal gain. But here, she just sleeps with him so she can then call the school and say that he slept with a student. In my mind, logically, she would just call the school and report sexual misconduct. She wouldn't actually go to such great lengths to sleep with him. It just doesn't make sense with a character that we've been introduced to for the last 6 episodes. Caroline is not Catherine. Caroline is not sleeping around just because she's bored. She asks people to sleep around so she can gain power. It just felt like such a weird choice that once again was trying to match the beats of the original, but narratively in the series made very little sense. And by episode 6, 7, Lucian and Annie have gotten super close and seem to be falling for each other. So Caroline meddles and reveals to Annie how Lucian found his mother hanging on his birthday, all in a ploy for Annie to not sleep with him, which is a strange thing to do. Like, what? How would... anyway, that pisses Lucian off because for as depraved as Lucian and Caroline are, they've always had a rule, and that is no moms. So Lucian stays with Annie in her dorm for days and days on end, and they eventually sleep together, they eventually have sex, and that's after he tells her that he can only do it if he films it. Mind you, he doesn't pressure her to do it. In fact, he says, "Let's not sleep together, let's watch a movie instead." So she asks him why. He tells her, "I have to film." And she's like, "Okay, I want to do it. I'll do it." The daughter of the Vice President of the United States just fully lets put me on tape having with a guy that I've known for a few weeks. Yeah. Teenagers are dumb, but college students, they need to be studied. But Lucian really is in love with her, so much so that he doesn't upload the sex tape to the shared folder he has with his sister, stepsister. Instead, he decides to forfeit the bet and give her the car, which obviously pisses Caroline off because this was never about the car or about a bet. This was about Catherine having control over him. It was about him doing everything for her. I mean, that's why he fucking uploads the sex tapes to the shared folder. For her. Ugh, nasty. So to show everyone how much of a monster Lucian is, Caroline decides to leak all of the sex tapes he's ever made.
You need to leave!
For all the bad things they do, Lucian does tell every woman that he sleeps with that he wants to film them, and they all agree to it. At one point, there is a sort of a police investigation starting to brew, but nothing comes of it, again, because it was canceled. But this was a crime, like an actual crime that could send Lucian to prison. Begging the question, why would you do that to then act like it was just a harmless prank the day after? Oh, the link has expired. Leading up to the end and in the aftermath of the sex tapes leak, Lucian visits Annie to tell her the whole truth, except Caroline got there first. And seeing how she's already influenced Annie so much, he decides instead to break up with her, with a very strong choice of words like he did in the original movie, but on his way out, warns Annie about Caroline too, except not convincingly enough because Annie does still join Delta Phi. And Lucian takes revenge on Caroline the only way he knows will actually affect her. He fucks her mom. He goes home, her mom, and then uploads the sex tape to their shared folder. Meanwhile, Annie finds some information that may prove Caroline is evil after all, and the season ends, not with Annie driving the car, not with a funeral, but instead with Lucian driving his car as Bittersweet Symphony plays and this ass green screen behind him. They couldn't even get real footage of him driving somewhere, literally anywhere. Jesus Christ, Amazon, where the is the budget? Oh, this looks so bad. Perhaps the most interesting storyline that felt really underdeveloped was Blaze, the gay guy embezzling from these rich fucks for his own gain. Because at one point the frat is under investigation and their finances are missing receipts. Blaze tries to shift the blame to anyone but himself, but it all fails. So he tries to blackmail Scott's father, threatening to reveal his son, the son of a Republican congressman, likes to suck. That's where they say Republican, I think. And he threatens Scott's father only to realize immediately after that Scott has already told his father about all the money problems, their special relationship, and how his father had agreed to pay everything that he owed. Not owed, stole. Blaze is the only non-privileged kid who had to truly fight dirty to get by, and is unceremoniously ruined because he got caught up playing these rich people games that he forgot to be human. And it all felt very inconsequential, not memorable, forgettable. It fails to be provocative like the original, but it also fails as class social commentary. Because as affluent as this college is, everybody, except the one gay man, seems to have money to spare. And that one storyline where someone actually struggles to keep up with everyone and actually has to do all of these evil doings to get by is kind of used as just a very disposable side plot that never gets enough airtime. And I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities to do a lot of good satire with those dynamics. Power structures are never questioned beyond a deranged progressive protester who is quickly painted as a butthurt demon woman. The story with a deeply political setting that refuses to engage in any meaningful critique of the social circles it portrays. Like they were scared to say something wrong, or to offend someone, or to cross some sort of arbitrary line that they refused to. Not even the visuals were that great, to be honest. The cinematography of the original kicks this series' so hard. It did have potential though, and parts of the story are entertaining, particularly the power struggles between Caroline and Lucian in the later episodes. Episode 3, there's also a very cool scene where everyone comes together like a well-oiled machine to manipulate the narrative this journalist will report to the world. You know, a glimpse into how these institutions protect themselves against foreign threats. In the same way that they framed Caroline's ex for the hazing incident, not because he was guilty, but because they needed a scapegoat, and Caroline was mad at him for dating other girls. Something I support, because in the original, she decided to destroy a 15-year-old girl as revenge on her ex-boyfriend. Here, she just destroys her ex-boyfriend. But in the same vein, by doing that, she becomes less cruel, more just. So is it cruel intentions or just intentions? Oh my god, just intentions. They're there. Are they good? Are they bad? Nobody knows because everyone's kind of evil equally, you know? Everyone's on equal footing, so nothing really stands out. Wow, they really had it all, and they went with nothing instead. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And again, sound off in the comments down below. Did you watch this remake? Did you like it? What were the changes that you enjoyed? And until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay stupid, and stay stuttering. Bye, guys.